On this edition of City Talk, from the Department of Public Works, you'll meet Marcelle Newman, and from the Mayor's office, Itha Cao. City Talk starts right now. Welcome to City Talk, where we continue to endeavor to answer the musical question, or perhaps not so musical question, what do these people do around here? And by these people, I mean city employees, including the one we have sitting next to us today, and that is Itha Cao, a policy analyst for Mayor Bill Peduto's office. Itha, welcome to the program.
Thank you, John.
So you are in charge of special projects, and that's a rather wide category, is it not?
Yeah, it absolutely is. So I guess I've been here for about 2 years now, a little over 2 years. Time flies when you're having fun. So I work for the mayor's office in the brand new Office of Equity. The mayor is very forward-thinking. I think as Pittsburgh moves forward as a tech city, and now it's known internationally as a hospital city, the mayor often mentions branding it and also making sure that no one gets left behind, because I think we've seen that in the past, and that's something that the city wants to improve.
When I see people complain, and I'm sure you agree with this, that some people are left out because that's just sort of the nature of the way things are, not that we have to accept it or can't try to improve it.
Right.
But I often think, what exactly can government do about that? And I'm sort of at a loss, and I guess that's your job.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it's my job and everyone on my floor. I think I can safely say that all of us really care, and that's why we work for the government, because it's a public service type of job. And I think really the focus is that I have managing special projects, but also as a policy analyst wearing a couple different hats. So my focus is in my portfolio are food insecurity, land recycling, as well as some financial and digital literacy. So thinking about what moves people forward in this entire city and entire world is really the know-how and the skill set to have opportunity, whether it's moving forward in jobs or getting access to healthy food for youth and families. These are some of the basic needs that we have in the city. But everyone on my floor, they work from sectors like working for affordable housing to improving the homelessness situation to the opioid epidemic, and also with the influx of more and more immigrants and refugee families. We're trying to provide services because we're all neighbors here in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. What kind of tools do you have at your disposal to try to improve any one of those categories?
Sure, yeah. So I would say food insecurity. Definitely thinking about a lot of our partners that are strong in this space, because we are a smaller government entity, but there are experts in the field. So in the food insecurity space, I definitely rely heavily on the food bank. They serve 11 counties in this area, and really they're a huge proponent of family health, as well as improving childhood hunger, which is one of the mayor's big issues.
So among your jobs is to make sure everybody knows about it, how to get access to it.
Right, yeah, how to get access to it. I would say because we, at the city, we own we own recreation centers, we own senior facilities, we have the power to service low-income folks this way. So for example, working with the food bank, as well as 412 Food Rescue during the federal furlough during Christmas, to kind of react to the families that were not able to access food stamps for 2.5 months, some of them. And typically food stamps should only last a month, and sometimes it's not even that sufficient. And as a family that grew up on WIC and myself SNAP, it's pretty hard to make that penny stretch. So I coordinated, in a couple days, just emergency food drop-offs for those families. We had a ton of families who came out, and we're very grateful because of that type of emergency help.
So your parents were immigrants, and as you mentioned, you had a little help from the government in order to get a start in this country.
Sure, absolutely. So my parents are immigrants from northeastern China, Jilin province specifically, and they came here over 35 years ago. My dad at that time got a government scholarship to get his PhD in the US. And at that time, it was a brand new thing. They didn't even know what it was. And so, yeah, he brought my mom over. She was a teacher of English in China, but to support the family, both of them worked very hard. But I'm very grateful because I think my mom has really taught that, and both my parents have taught that really strong work ethic. She worked a lot of part-time jobs as a housekeeper, delivering newspapers, a lot of part-time jobs. So I think really it's very important for me to give back then.
But as you say, therefore you can identify with people in need and are that much more motivated to help them.
Yeah, for sure. I think, growing up in a family, it was all about saving money. So really, I think working with my colleague Henry Horn Pyatt, who is the manager of small business and redevelopment, on launching the financial empowerment centers, which is the free one-on-one financial coaching that we have at the city. That just launched. It's spread across the city in different locations and commingled with social services. That's something that was very important to me personally, because that's something that I always learned is, if you don't have money, then don't spend it. So
good plan.
Yeah, so there are a couple, equity issues that I think, even though they seem very unrelated, they actually are. So, food insecurity, oftentimes you have to worry about, how are you going to use that next paycheck? Is it towards groceries? Is it towards childcare?
Is it difficult to measure how much of an impact you're having, or are there statistics available? Are there ways of measuring it?
Sure. I think dependent on which program. So, for example, Connect Home, I think it's a pretty, quantifiable goal, but it's difficult to measure because thinking, okay, well, we connected 34 residents, they got their computers, they got their workforce certificates, following up, I think is difficult, but also thinking about, the number of families that we serve with food drop-offs, right? Sure, we solve the problem in the short term, but how can we give them the skill set so that they'll achieve opportunity and success in the long term? I think that really takes, a dedicated mayor like we have, as well as dedicated staff to continue keeping in contact and really, again, relying on our partners that do a lot of the community outreach. We have a community affairs team. I think they're fantastic because they're out in the community every single night, going to all the community meetings, and there really are point people who are interacting and interfacing with the public.
Sounds like you find it personally rewarding, the work you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, my background actually after graduate school at the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs. The mayor and I believe, are the only two graduates of that program in the mayor's office.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think a lot of other people got their graduate degrees at CMU, which, the Heinz College is fantastic as well. But it's a point of pride for me. I think definitely that's where, I met a lot of the best friends that I have in the city, as well as, many moved on to DC, New York, and thinking about all of the work that they do in the federal government, in the nonprofit sector, and even some in the private sector. I think all of us have that type of importance that you have to find value in the work that you do.
Itha Cao, sounds like you're doing a great job and continued success. It's a very challenging job, but good for you for tackling it.
Thank you, John.
And thanks for being on City Talk.
Absolutely.
We'll be back and meet another city employee when we come back in a moment.
I'll never forget the day our landlord called and said, "Read your lease. No pets allowed." My owner tells him my dog ate the lease, but that didn't work. And now I'm stuck in a shelter. But this pit bull is ready for a new crib. I'm loving, loyal, and play well with others. So don't be intimidated by all my muscles, because the biggest one I have is my heart. That's right, I said it.
Welcome back to City Talk. Let's meet another member of the staff of the Department of Public Works, DPW. Say hello to Marcelle Newman. Marcelle, welcome to City Talk.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with the personal, if you don't mind. Where are you from originally?
So I was born in Lebanon, but my grandparents emigrated here back in the 20s. So as the old traditions were, the men would go back to Lebanon, get married, raise a family, and things were really good back in the 60s and 70s. But then we emigrated here. The whole family moved back here to Newcastle, actually, in 77. So I've been living in Newcastle, and now Pittsburgh is home, and also lived around the country, 10 years in Salt Lake City, a little bit of Baltimore. So I'm happy.
What did you do in Salt Lake City?
So I worked for their government, for their municipality government.
And then is
then
that how you
for
got into government?
Ogden, Utah, yes.
Okay.
Ogden,
Utah as well?
Yes. So
And what did you do for them?
I was community development block grant coordinator for them. So I would input all the projects that OMB now handles.
Office of Management and Budget.
Exactly. I would just input all the projects in their IDIS system and track and monitor projects according to CDBG rules.
All right, and then you moved to Pittsburgh. Why here?
This is home. Like, it's Newcastle is home, but Pittsburgh is my intentional home. This is where I want to live. We have so much more to offer here in Pittsburgh, I think. The job market is always great here, and I love the city. I love the diversity here, so it's a great place to live.
Well, the job market hasn't always been great here, but I'm glad it's been great for you.
Yeah.
So you worked for Mayor Tom Murphy years ago.
Correct. I started out in the Office of Management and Budget. I think it was 2002. And then I worked for City Council's budget as well, and then moved to Public Works about 5 years ago.
So Public Works, so it sounds like a lot more paperwork back then and more administrative duties now.
It is a lot more administrative duties. So the director's initiative is to make sure all the bureaus in Public Works are consistent. And so part of my job is to make sure that all the policies are consistent throughout the bureaus and divisions.
Did you find a lot of inconsistency when you first came aboard?
There wasn't a whole lot of policies or something that to teach me to do it.
At least it was consistent, that there was no policy.
So we're still working on policies. I mean, it's issues come up daily, and we try to address them, but it also creates an opportunity to set policy. Yeah.
I bet that's very interesting in that respect. So among the things that you also deal with is litter.
Correct. So, among the biggest topics for me personally is the litter and garbage and getting to zero waste eventually. I know the mayor's initiative is to have it by 2030, and we're working towards that.
By 2030, what goal do you hope to accomplish?
Zero waste.
Really?
Yes.
How do you do that?
So we're working on to see what best practices, what other cities are doing. We have the sustainability team helping us with that. We have recycling opportunities to make sure things are getting recycled rather than thrown in a landfill.
So how do you work with recycling? I didn't mean to interrupt, because occasionally you read that recycling isn't nearly as good as you hoped it would be, because it's very difficult apparently to recycle many of the items that we're all putting on the curb on trash day.
China stopped accepting our recycling.
China did?
Yes.
Okay.
So that has put us in a bind a little bit. Plus, a lot of our folks, not just our folks, but nationally, things collected for recycling aren't truly recyclable. So you have a single stream here in the city of Pittsburgh. Everything is thrown into one bin. Mm-hmm. However, sometimes folks are not very good at cleaning up the recycling.
So is that a handy tip for people?
So it creates an issue for people at the recycling center.
Should we be rinsing out stuff before we put bottles in plastic or glass or whatever?
Correct, and make sure only recyclable products are going into recycling.
What are the kind of non-recyclable products that people keep putting in?
Certain plastics are non-recyclable. Sometimes they throw food containers that are dirty, and so it creates.
So if it's dirty, just don't use it in the
recycling
bin.
Right, because it creates issues at the recycling center. And we've heard from our vendors that the blue bags are causing them issues with their machineries getting tangled up with the blue bags. So we're thinking of other ways to manage that. And
is this during the sorting process where
this is the sorting process.
Look at each individual item and then see if it's recyclable and if it's clean enough to be in the good pile?
So that's where they separate the glass, the paper, the plastic. And some things are not going to be recycled. So it still creates a waste.
You also deal with litter. I remember years ago, the guy who succeeded Mayor Murphy, your original boss, Bob O'Connor, unfortunately had a short-lived term, but had the Red Up program. Mm-hmm. And I know Mayor Peduto is also concerned about litter. I don't know what we can do to make people stop littering. That seems almost impossible.
That culture is going to change. You got to work with the young folks to get them trained on what is litter or what is not. We have a very high job to do with that. We also have some illegal dumping sites that we're dealing with as well.
No kidding.
And thankfully, we do have a lot of volunteers, community volunteers that help with litter pickup, organized events. Last year, we had about 4,000.
Organized events, no kidding.
Organized events. And those are the community members who care about their parks and their streets and their community. But again, it's, there's still some odd places, some neighborhoods where there's still illegal dumping, and we're trying to get ahead of that.
Here's another, what I assume is an impossible problem. I don't know why so many smokers don't think that their cigarette butts qualify as litter.
Yes, I don't know that either.
Me neither.
Yeah, that does present a big problem. It clogs up our sewer pipes. It makes it very difficult to clean up those little cigarette butts in between the cracks and sidewalks or streets. So yes, it's a problem.
So how do you like your job? That's a pretty big job.
I love it. I really do. Every day there's something new to learn. We meet with other departments. We try different processes. We get a lot of feedback from partner organizations, from the public about ways we can improve. And so we try those things. We have test different theories and see what works for us.
Can you give us an example of one theory you may have tested?
So right now we're doing process improvements in forestry. So they've cut down their tree permits process from 19 to 12. So that's 7 steps less.
Fewer, okay, great.
To get a permit, and one of the is that people can send us pictures or videos of the tree they'd like to be removed or pruned, rather than having one of our guys go to the site and investigate it. And so So many other people, understandably or perhaps obviously, have said technology has really streamlined some of the processes. Correct.
You don't have to have a guy investigate and then come back and get the tools.
Right.
You can just have a guy like, I see. Sent me that picture on his iPhone, I'll just go out and cut it down.
And we're doing new censored litter cans. So instead of having a crew go from each division every day to investigate on the litter cans, now we have a program with the sensors. They will the foreman will print out a report of which cans are filled, say at a certain 70% or 80%, and that way we only go to those cans. Mm-hmm. So we're not wasting time servicing cans that are not being used.
I can give you a handy tip. The garbage cans in the Strip District are constantly overflowing.
Okay.
If you didn't know that, you can take that and run with it.
We will, absolutely.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah.
And how long would you like to keep doing this job? Would you recommend a career in government service to other folks out there?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Especially if you care about the environment, if you care about process improvements. There's a lot of things, we're doing, a lot of interesting things. If you care about technology, you would want to come work for us. We're doing like that litter can sensors, and we have a team. It's not just Public Works, but a team and IMP helping us with that. We're doing the litter can sensors, the GPS routing for snowplows.
Yeah, I've been reading about that. That sounds more efficient and smarter. Yeah,
exactly. And then other process improvements throughout the city. So. Yeah. And
when you walk around the city yourself, do you feel obligated to pick up every single piece of litter that you see because, like you feel a personal sense of responsibility?
I do. I take pictures. I 311 things. So, yes.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Marcelle Newman, thank you so much for joining us on City Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Very nice to meet, intelligent, hardworking public servants.
Thank you.
Seems they have more than you'd think around here. That's this edition of City Talk. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.